Hey everybody, Mark Herman, aka Ellie Bengals fan on most of the major platforms, and this is the draft recap episode of Jungle Talk.
Who day, baby?
Who day? So, I want to say first of all that we're welcoming back Sam, which is great, from Primetime Sports Talk, and I feel like a guy who just rescued a pet from the shelter because you've been busy covering the Reds. and so we're rescuing you because this is a story of like two. I'm not a big baseball guy and I'm not a Reds fan, but I see all the Twitter conversations because of all the Bengal followers. And so cries for selling the team and all the stuff. So I feel like I'm rescuing you for having to cover the Reds for a little bit so that you can actually
for at least a half hour,
Yeah, so at least you can. I mean, you have an article you said you have to get out, so I know it's probably baseball related, but I definitely feel like I'm rescuing from that and giving you a slight break for a little bit at least. So.
It is, and on top of that, the other thing is, at prime time, we cranked out close to 200 scouting reports on the players eligible for the draft, and I did not write many of them at all, but I'm an editor there too. So, I was waking up at 2:00 in the morning and working on edits for the next day's scouting reports. They had to go out, and then I'm going to bed at 9 a.m. and sleeping all day. So my schedule's been a little wonky, but it's getting back to normal now.
All right, well, here we go. So we're going to do what we usually do. Remind everybody where they can find all your stuff.
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at Buy and Sell You. I write for Primetime Sports Talk, like Mark said. You can find our articles at PTST News or Primetime Sports Talk. .com.
There you go. And before I forget, if you don't subscribe, please subscribe. It's all I ask.
Hit that thing.
Hit the like. It'll help us out on the analytics. I'm getting a little glare from the light right there, so I apologize for that. I'm moving but I couldn't get rid of it, so I'll have to live with it. It's not across my face, so I guess it's we'll go with it. So we're going to do what we usually do. We're going to cover a little bit of Bengal news, and then we'll get into the pick we liked the most, pick we didn't. We'll recap the draft, and then we'll talk about our biggest draft surprise and our biggest draft disappointment. Can be Bengal related, could be just draft related. So we'll just jump right in. First of all, I picked up Jonah's 5th-year option. Not a surprise. I think I read it was like 15.3. I don't even know why we waited.
Right.
To me, he's an integral part. For 15.3, you keep him on the line and give him another year. So we picked that up, and then obviously we lost Auden Tate. I don't know if I mentioned that in the last video, but I'm sad because I really think he could have played a role, not just on this team, but he was drafted by Marvin, and I don't think he ever got a fair shake. Marvin would never let the guys break they were just there as depth pieces, and I'm glad he got a chance. I think he's in Atlanta, but I don't think he ever really got a chance on our team, so I wish him well.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I mean, we all know that he was just athletically just completely off the charts, you know what I mean? It just kind of makes you wonder if it's just that he's always been in too crowded a wide receiver core, or if, for all we know, because we don't know everything, for all we knew, maybe he wasn't the best route runner, or, maybe even though he was so gifted athletically. So I'm with you. He was a fan favorite, even though he was only on the field every once in a while. And it was because of that ability to just pull down something that looked like it had absolutely no shot.
Yeah, he was good at the contested catch. It's sad to me because, like I said, and I think part of it, if he had been drafted initially by Zach, I think he gets a better shot at some playing time. I mean, he might have gotten some of that Michael Thomas time, that kind of thing. But Marvin never let him see the field. And so he was just kind of lost. So I wish him well, in Atlanta. Fortunately, we won't have to. It's not like he went to the Browns or anything, so we won't have to see him regularly. as I said in my last video, this has been an absolutely amazing offseason for us. I also said I hate mocks, and I think this draft shows you why I hate mocks. I mean, how many mocks did we see where Linderbaum was there for us? I mean, so I just hate them because it's just such a fluid situation. But this has been an amazing offseason. The free agency period was unbelievable. We killed it. Especially with the O-line signings, and I think and adding Hayden Hurst, I think that it really opened up everything for us. The draft itself, this was all about versatility. I mean, all the guys we took were versatile, especially the first four. Do we want to do best pick, your favorite pick, and your least favorite pick?
Sure. I mean, however you want to do it. My only comment on the draft as a whole is, we're so used to picking at the top of every round that Bengals fans are always, kind of looking for that big splash every single round, 1, 2, 3, because we're in a prime position. And so now this year, because we're picking 31st, the draft wasn't sexy, unless you're, really, really into it. But, there's a lot of names you're looking up, like who's available, or who's that guy, never even heard of him. But we did really, really well with our picks. I mean, overall in the draft, I mean, we pulled, 4 potential starters of the future, and a couple of good role players.
Yeah, we didn't mention this before. We didn't talk about this. We never give up our nuggets, so it's more spontaneous. But yeah, I said we were very strategic. I'm looking right at my notes. Very strategic. Between the free agency period and what we did in the draft, it shows me that we were serious about making a push back to being in Arizona next year, because I think all 4 of our first 4 picks, I think all 4 of them make the roster, and not only make the roster, I think they all play a significant role. I'm not going to say they're starters, but they all play a significant role. So we were very specific as to what we were looking for. And I'll just jump in. Let's do my favorite pick was Daxton Hill. First and foremost, because I think the Bengals were smart. Okay. I mean, all 4 tackles are off the board. Both guards are off the board. Linderbaum is off the board. And instead of, panicking, they just go to here was a guy who was projected by many mocks to be a top 20 pick. I saw him constantly between 15 and 19 in drafts. And there he was for us at 31. And that's what I mean about I hate mocks, because who would have seen him fall? A guy that should be a top, 15, 16, 17 pick and winds up still there at 31.
Well, and especially when you consider the fact that at that point, only 1 quarterback was off the board. No running backs were gone yet. And still somehow he managed to fall. So, I mean, you take those 2 positions out of the situation, and you would think for sure that he's going up there. So the fact that he ended up at 31 for us is a really good thing.
Yeah, and he's, like I said, he's an exceptional defender. He's going to pair really well with Bates and Bell. He's going to be, and we'll bring him in nickel packages. There could be times where it's Bates and him out there. Could be time where there's, Hill and Bell out there, but he's going to pair really well. It also gives us, I know I tweeted out right after we made the pick, I said, probably the last year for either Bates or Bell, because I think we're only going to be able to keep one of those guys. They both are, obviously Bates is franchised and Bell's on the last year of his deal. So I don't see us, unless we got a really friendly deal from one of them. I figure this guy's the piece and we let the other one go.
I mean, and you've got to, I mean, honestly, I know I said this coming into this year in free agency, and boy, was I wrong. But you cannot expect the Bengals to keep doing this every year. So I think, don't hate me for saying it, but there's a chance they're both gone. And that we're going out and trying to find another safety on the market. So hopefully Dax will come along quickly and be ready to move into a starting role next year.
Yeah, well, he was by far, like I said, the value pick we got. Drafting for need, it's insurance. I still hope we extend Bates if the number's right. We are not giving Bates a Ward-like contract. We're not. The Browns have done some really stupid things, in my opinion, financially this season, guaranteeing the 240 to Watson, that Ward contract. I mean, it's just, so we're not giving that kind of contract to Bates. He's just not going to get it. So,
and leave it to the Browns to raise the quarterback market like a fucking $1 trillion.
Yeah, no, it's
and anybody that's got a quarterback to sign in the near future is like Browns.
Well, and Cameron Kirk is another one. Miami did that with that deal to was it Miami or Jacksonville? I can't remember which one of the Florida teams gave Cameron Kirk that ridiculous. There's a third receiver on Arizona, and he gets that kind of money.
Christian Kirk. That's it.
Right. It's fortunately we have a couple years, so maybe there'll be some more realistic deals before Chase, before we have to take care of Chase, because we do have to keep that on the horizon. And it's not that I hate Bates. That's why we can't, it has to be smart, and we can't lock up that kind of money with Joe coming up. So what was your favorite pick?
My favorite pick, and boy, we are real imaginative here. Your favorite was number 1. Mine's number 2. And it's Cam Taylor-Britt. Where Dax is not a very speedy guy, but makes great reads on where the ball is going to go, and covers a lot of ground to get there in a hurry. That's he makes up for that lack of speed. Cam Taylor-Britt doesn't need to do that. He is the speedy, physical monster out there. I mean, the guy, he only ran a 4.38, which in this day and age is not astounding, but at cornerback, you need that speed to keep up with some of these wide receivers that are coming at you nowadays. I really like him. He's a really likable dude. He was a fan favorite at Nebraska. I don't know if you saw this. There's a video out there of him throwing the ball, and he threw an 85-yard bomb. 85 yards, tight spiral and everything. And I was like, this guy is just, and that just gives you, I'm not saying we're going to bring him out there and run a bunch of trick plays.
Run a trick play. Come on. I could see him.
Well, he can, but the whole defense will be like, why is that dude from defense out here?
Yeah. Well,
somebody watch him real close. But just overall, I think he pairs well, with Dax too. You know what I mean? This is the future of 2 guys that will be future starters in our secondary. Cam is great on the borders as a cornerback. And like I said, he's just so athletically gifted. Look up some of the drills he ran, and, look up him doing cone drills and, obviously without, offenders on the field, it's hard to read, but him running routes as though there's a receiver there, picking off the ball and just boom, pedal to the metal, gas the other way. He's just really fun to watch. He's a fun dude.
Yeah. I like I said, I really feel like with the first 4 picks, we were very strategic. All of them will make the team. All of them will play significant roles. You look at Zach Carter. This guy's definitely going to be a rotational piece. He's got the skills already. He's versatile, pass rush, inside, outside. He will definitely be in the rotation. And then
he's got the skills. He's got the skills to be a starter down the line too. Yeah. And what better situation for a guy that can play anywhere on the defensive line is to come into a place where you can learn from guys like DJ Reader. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's just a great situation. But you're right. He's going to play a role this year.
Oh yeah.
But as long as he soaks up the knowledge from the guys that like BJ Hill and Reader that we have there now, let alone the guys rushing from the edge. If he soaks up all that knowledge, I think he's going to be a starter down the line, and more sooner than later.
Yeah, and Volson, same kind of thing. This is a guy, he's physical. He likes to punish. If you've watched some of his videos, he continues blocking downfield. He likes to put his guy down. He's exactly the Pollock, eats glass mold that he said he wants. He fits perfectly, and he's versatile, and he probably will slide over to guard. I played tackle at North Dakota, but he'll probably slide over to guard, but he's exactly what we needed on the line. So, versatility versatility, a guy who could play multiple spots on the line. And like I said, has that eats glass mentality that Pollock, wanted. So
I'll go ahead and say that I think Cordell Volson was actually my least favorite pick in this draft. It's just I didn't at first because I see all the same things you see, and I like it. I think he's a good player. I think fourth is pretty early for him. I don't think he should have gone in the fourth round. And also, the Bengals have done this for years and years and years, where instead of taking a guy who has played that position for 3 years in college, they take a guy that plays another position and says, we're going to move him to a new position. And I just think that's strange when you've got other guards on the board and you've got other guys that are available. I think another guard went like 5 picks later. I could be making that up.
I don't know. I'd have to look at the thing. I'm not going to.
That's they'll let me
it's
know.
It's a fourth rounder. If we were having this talk in the first round, then
they'll let me know in the comments, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But so and this is all coming from a friend of mine. And when I first said, that, okay, I could see the Volson pick, and he's like, why do we always pick somebody from another position to play a position that we need? And that does kind of baffle me. Now, I will say still, I think Volson is a great player. He's going to be rotational. He is going to add to the team this season and down the line. I do not think he will ever be a starter in this league. But I like the guy. I think fourth is too early, and I don't understand drafting a position and moving a guy to a new position. I mean, these are college kids,
Right.
All you're doing is setting back the process 2 or 3 years.
I always, in this case, it's like in Pollock, I trust. There's something he saw. If he thinks he can coach this guy, like I said, I'm trusting Pollock because he's great. And
and I get that too.
So,
it's just something we've done a lot in the past, and it starts to kind of be like, well, why are we doing that? You know what I mean?
right.
When there's somebody else that is really good at that position already that you could grab,
Right.
And to reach for the guy on top of that is a little strange.
But clearly that was there because we didn't pick again. We had 1/5 because we traded away our 6th and then traded away our extra 7th that we picked up. So the other 2 people are projects. So, maybe they make the team, maybe they make the practice squad. We're going to see how they pencil out. I mean, we added, I'm looking at 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 40, 15 guys and undrafted free agents. That was as of yesterday. I mean, we might have more,
Sure.
2 more O linemen, another wide receiver. I mean, so we'll all see how everything plays out. If there's any standouts or somebody, but like I said, that's what I use the word strategic. I thought the Bengals had a specific plan in mind, specific guys they wanted. We only have, that's the thing. This team made the Super Bowl. We only have so many roster spots available. So that was I remember watching the draft and a couple people said, well, the Bengals only have 6 picks. I was like, I'm okay with that. Right. I wouldn't have minded trading the 5th and 7th if we could have gotten up, if there was a specific person that they really wanted. Because like I said, those 2 pieces we added, the 5th and 7th, they might only be as good as some of our undrafted free agents that we signed.
Yeah, I will say, and I apologize for anybody out there thinking I'm always negative. I'm not always negative, but I look at both sides. And trading away the 6th and one of the 7th is it clearly gets a big fat check mark from the Brown family because it's 2 guys that they don't have to pay. And they're like, does the 6th and 7th round guy really pan out? Probably not. Sure, deal him away to move up 3 spots, or deal 1 away to move up 3 spots and 1 to move up a few more. But that's totally the Brown family way of thinking. Well, we just blew all this money in free agency, so a couple less draft picks ain't gonna hurt.
See, but I don't see it as blowing. That's the thing. I think that we got Karos, Kappa.
I don't either, but I'm saying they do.
Right, but we got those 3 guys for the same price Miami paid for 1 tackle.
Right.
I mean, money was well spent. It's not, so, and I don't think they think more in those terms, but I don't mind. Zach clearly felt, and Tobin clearly felt that the Chiefs are one of the teams that was ahead of them in the second round. There was a chance they were going to lose that guy. So
Right.
I don't ever mind trading a 6th or 7th round pick if it means you're ensuring jumping up 3 spots. How many times has that happened to us? We all sat there going, Cedric Ellis is going to be our nose tackle. Cedric Ellis is going to be our nose tackle. We never hid. Marvin Lewis never hid what we did. And then all of a sudden, the Saints jump up 1 pick ahead of us, take Cedric Ellis, we get Keith Rivers. Or Frank Ragnow is going to be our center. Frank Ragnow is going to be our center. And so Detroit jumps up and takes Frank Ragnow before the pick before
it's almost like
it's almost like I don't mind jumping up if it avoids the Ragnow and the Cedric Ellis blunders of drafts past.
It's almost like we call teams and we're like, hey, who are you going to take? And they're like, well, we're not telling you. And but then teams call us and they're like, who are you going to take? Well, we're going to take Ragnow.
Oh yeah, we really like him. He's a stud.
Next thing you know, they're on the phone with the team right in front of us.
So I would not even be disappointed that Linderbaum didn't fall to us if we had gotten Ragnow.
Right.
Okay? Because what did we take? We took Price. And I know we turned Price into Hill, and that, that was making lemonade out of lemons and all that. But still, if we just had Ragnar, we never would have been in that position. We still could have traded for Hill. So, yeah, it's I do like I don't really, that doesn't really bother me. Let's jump into talking about a little bit about the undrafted free agents. And also, we could still go out. I'm going to throw this out there. For depth at the right price, we could still get a 1-year rental on Spain and a 1-year rental on Ogunjobi. They're still there. So if we turns out that we want more depth, and we have the money to spend and they want to spend it, we can go that route with it instead of, paying a 5th or 7th rounder. So
Mark, before you get to UDFAs, I just want to go ahead and let's just round out the picks.
Oh, okay.
I just had just a quick comment or two on each of the last 2 guys. Tyson Anderson is really exciting. You've used the word versatile in this recording probably 10 times, and he is that guy. He's super versatile. He's in theory, he's a safety. He can play cornerback, but probably not at the NFL level. I don't think he's fast enough. But what he can do is he can also play linebacker. He's kind of a safety linebacker hybrid. I mean, this is a big, strong dude, and it's nice to have that sort of flexibility in your lineup. I'm not saying you got to plug him in at linebacker, but having an extra big guy that can creep up to the line, right before a running play would be a really, really big deal. And, he's coming from a small school. So like you said, he's going to be a little bit of a project. And he might not rotate in immediately this year, but I think he's going to mean a lot to us in the future. And the last guy,
well, let me jump in on him real quick.
Yeah, please do.
He's got really good closing speed, but it troubles me that he hasn't had an interception. Coming from a small school and being a dominant player on that team, he hasn't had an interception since 2018. But like I said, but the raw ability is there. He's the measurables are there. His 40-yard dash time's there. So, and like I said, he's got really good closing speed. So I could see him playing that kind of hybrid kind of role. So I know what they saw in him, but we both agree he's a project. This guy isn't a boom. We can't say like the first 4 picks. The first 4 picks, I'm going to say it again, will make the roster, will play a role this season. We can't say that about the next 2. So
I agree. I agree 100%. But I will say that even though Gunter, who we took in the 7th, is definitely a project, he flashed a lot, man. His tape from Coastal Carolina is something else. I mean, he's just absolutely bowled a bunch of guys over. Now I understand it's Coastal Carolina. He's not playing against top-notch competition per se. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's got the ability, he's got the size, he's got a motor, and he's got the drive, and he's exciting to watch. And when I said that, at primetime, we've done all these scouting reports, And the guys in that department are very, very good at what they do. One of the guys mocked Gunter to us in the 5th. So, the fact that we got him in the 7th, and I trust this guy like with everything. So, the fact that we got him in the 7th, I consider that a steal already. And if he even performs moderately well in a rotational capacity down the line after this year, then I consider that a mammoth steal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If these guys can play special teams, that's their ticket to the roster. It's really simple. If you could show, because both of these guys in Anderson and Gunner, they have good speed, they have good measurables, they're very athletic guys. If they can figure out a way to make a special teams unit and contribute there, that's their ticket to the roster. So we'll see. And it's the same thing. I wasn't going to go through all the undrafted free agents, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing with the undrafted free agents. Show that you can play. Bill Parcells always talked about 3-team, 4-team, 5-team guys. I mean, if you can be on punt return, kick return, punt, kickoff, punt, field goal, if you can play all those teams in addition to being a depth piece for defense, safety, whatever position you're in, that's your ticket to the roster. That's what kept Thaddeus Moss off the roster.
Yeah, just get your foot in the door. Just get your foot in the door, however you need to do it. And then at some point, they'll look down the sideline and be like, "Hey, why don't you get in there?"
Right.
You know what I mean? But I'm just here to play special teams. Not anymore. Get in there.
Yeah. Well, I always point to Dan Skuda, who was like a 5-team player for us. He ended up going to the Niners, but this guy was, he was a backup linebacker. He could be a backup DB, he could come in on the nickel. He played, 4 of the special teams units. I mean, those are the guys when you see teams giving up a lot of kick returns or punt returns. Wait, let's talk about Green Bay. You could see the lack of depth on their special teams, and it cost them the playoffs.
Right.
It cost them playoffs. Yeah. Well, I mean, there they are losing at home to the Niners again on what? On special teams plays, on a punt, on a kickoff. That's the depth component of the team. Let's go. I don't want to go through all the undrafted free agents unless there's one specifically you want to call out or.
No, not necessarily.
Yeah. Okay, so we don't have like a Puka Williams or anything this year where we actually say, "Oh, we really like this guy. He's got a shot," that kind of thing. We don't have that this year, at least not yet. We don't know. Like I said, this is that we don't. These guys, So, but give me your biggest draft surprise, and this can be Bengal related, and this can be a draft related, or it can be both. You might have one of each. So,
I'm gonna say it's the quarterbacks. Because I think coming into the draft, everybody knew the running backs were going to be taken very early, because every year the running backs, it goes down and down and down because they have less of a shelf life. Nobody wants to pay them the huge money later, let alone earlier, or have them pulled out or whatever. So running back is becoming less and less important. I mean, we've seen far lesser teams succeed with running backs you never heard of before that year. But the quarterback surprises me because it's every team's biggest need. You know what I mean? It's, if you don't have a great quarterback, you're probably not going to go all the way. Now, I'm not saying that's always true, because there are certainly times in history. I always point to Trent Dilfer as a great example. But it's just amazing to me, not that there was only one taken in the first round, although that did surprise me quite a bit, but how far the rest of them all fell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was a real, especially Malik Willis, who coming in, everybody's like, he's the first quarterback off the board. He might go 5th, et cetera, et cetera. Well, next thing you know, he's just sitting around like, hello.
Well, I was talking about before the draft is always the season of misinformation. So I think everybody talks up all the quarterbacks, hoping that teams reach, because that means another player falls.
Exactly.
So everybody talks about it, but you can actually see where the quarterbacks went, that everybody pretty much realized this was a really lean class for quarterbacks. I mean, Ritter's project, I think he can pan out. I think he landed in a great spot.
Yeah.
I was happy that Malik Willis didn't go to the Steelers, because I
Yeah.
think he would have been harder to defend. I think that Trubisky probably, and Pickett is he's another Roethlisberger in terms of mobility and stuff
Right.
like that. I mean, he has an arm and everything, but we know how to defend that. And the thing about Pickett, this said it all to me about the quarterbacks in this draft. His closest comparison by all the analysts is Derek Carr, Andy Dalton. You're a first round quarterback, and you're being compared to two second. Well, I think Carr and Dalton were second round picks. Carr might have been.
Carr was first.
Was he a first rounder? I don't remember him being. I don't think, but neither one has won a playoff game. Neither one has showed there. So that's not the comparison you want. You want to hear being compared to quarterbacks that have, done more. So that to me, but it just shows you, but the Steelers needed to do this. I know Steeler fans, and they're upset that they weren't, in the draft, trying to get a quarterback the last 2 years. So, but
you're right.
But the quarterbacks
you're right about Derek. I don't know why I was thinking. I think he was. I must have been thinking about his brother, actually.
Yeah, his brother was first overall.
Yeah.
So, but they were comparing. So when you got that kind of comparison, is he worth the first round pick? Well, he was to the Steelers, and it's a local kid, and he's going to put butts in the seats. But I was pretty pleased. My biggest draft surprise was that there were 2 trades in the first round, and neither one of them included Baker Mayfield or Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right.
You could see the impact of the Bengals with the Chase and Burrow connection. We saw it in free agency with Devontae Adams being reunited with Carr. And then we saw it here where Hollywood Brown was traded to the Cardinals, so he's reunited with Kyler Murray. But I don't think the Cardinals got good compensation. But I was really surprised at both trades, and I was surprised that the Titans dumped AJ Brown. They decided they didn't, because the guy they got, maybe he looks like him, acts like him, could be him, but he's not him. And AJ Brown was a key piece on why they were the 1 seed, and now he's in Philadelphia. So I was surprised by that. Those 2 trades, like I said, 2 trades, and neither one was Mayfield or Garoppolo.
And it was a difference of basically it was a $25 million decision, because apparently Tennessee was offering about $20 million a season to AJ, and as soon as Philadelphia got him, they gave him 25 a season for 4 years.
Right.
There's some change in there and some guarantees that are involved, but apparently that's really why they eventually made that decision, which is still a little odd to me. But I think Philadelphia got a steal out of that. They really had to pay the piper in order to give him a nice looking contract once he got into town. But I still think they came out way on top in that trade.
Yeah. I talked before the draft. I don't remember what show it was on, but I talked about, I wouldn't have minded trading out of 31 if someone was going to give us an immediate starting guard or tackle. This was obviously before free agency, before we got Kappa, Karros, and Collins, but I would have been okay with that as long as we're trading 31 for the meeting. And that's what Philadelphia did. I mean, they know what they're getting in AJ Brown, which is why I questioned Tennessee. The whole thing kind of surprised me because you don't know, and you could have taken a major step back. And it also showed when they drafted a quarterback that maybe Tannehill's not what they saw in the postseason this year. And in big games, maybe, they're thinking down the road. So we'll see.
Well, he's getting up there. He's getting up there a little bit. People forget Tannehill's been around a little bit.
Yeah. My biggest Bengals,
no spring chicken.
He's not old, but quarterbacks, they're so protected, and now we have a different thought process. You look at Brady and Rodgers and how long they're playing. But my biggest surprise from the Bengals, and this isn't a complaint, but was the fact I really thought we were going to pick up a tight end. I think Hayden Hurst is here on a 1-year deal. I don't know that we're going to, get him for long term. He's here on a 1-year deal. And I was surprised. I thought we would add a tight end piece. It makes me think that maybe they think they want to give a year and see what they have in Moss, and then they can always go for a tight end next year. I don't know. That surprised me. I thought with the 1-year, only the 1-year deal to Hurst, I thought we would go tight end at some point.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you in the Thad Moss thinking, and I don't agree with them if that's what they're thinking, but because I'm not a Thad Moss fan at all. But the I think there's also, you've got to recognize that every year, even if they're a little bit older, there are tight ends that are cut from other teams who still have gas in the tank that you can get for, a reasonable price on the market. So I think maybe they're thinking a little of column A, a little of column B. Either we'll roll with what we got and see if Thad can do something, alongside Sample and Hayden Hurst, or if, somebody just kind of falls out of the sky, we're going to snatch them up.
Yeah, there's going to be another wave of cuts coming in June. So,
oh yeah.
So we'll see. There's going to be guys out there, and you have guys. Honey Badger's still out there. And I know he's close to signing with the Saints. And they're going to bring him home and everything. But the fact that he's still here, I mean, here we are in the beginning of May, and Honey Badger wasn't picked up in free agency. He's been out there too long, and I think the Saints will probably get a good deal. But there's guys constantly available. All right, what was your biggest disappointment in the draft? And I don't really have one from the Bengals. So
I don't either. I mean, I mentioned, kind of what my disappointment overall was in the Bengals draft, which was the 4th rounder. But my biggest disappointment in the draft, I just think this draft was really strange.
Yeah, it was, because there wasn't any sure number one, sure number, we didn't know about quarterbacks. And then it turned out, the one team that took them because they got to take their pick.
And there were a bunch of guys that didn't get drafted that should have. That doesn't really disappoint me, though. That's just kind of the way it goes. I will say that I dislike watching the draft every year. It's so I'm always disappointed in actual pageantry and event of the draft, and the close-ups of the fans cheering when they have no idea who they just drafted. They're like,
this was next guy is for me.
Keywan. All right, look, how many Keywans are there? And they're like, Keywan who? Harris. Woo!
Yeah.
That's weird. And the announcing of the picks has just gotten comical at this point. I don't know if you can call that a disappointment. I'm over it.
It was disappointing for me because I was hoping to be there, and then because of work and stuff, and I was not able to go, and that was a disappointment because I know next year I think it's in Detroit or somewhere. I mean, who wants to go there? So it was just kind of that was a disappointment for me because it's right here in Vegas. It's a 45-minute flight, and I love Vegas. So, right. But that was disappointing, and I don't mind the way the draft, the whole goes, because I work over the weekends. I can get more done on Saturday, Sunday without answering emails and phone calls. And to me, it's kind of that noise in the background where you only need, it's like watching a baseball game. You only need 30 seconds of attention every 4 or 5 minutes to really, because that's how much action there is, So if you like baseball, you probably like the draft because it's the same kind of, just chugs along, and it doesn't have a time limit. It's there until like innings. It's there until you do it. So, But my biggest disappointment, and I know you're going to go, okay, that was a disappointment, was the draft that the Ravens had. I mean, getting Kyle Hamilton, getting Linderbaum, for them to get both of those guys in front of us. That was just, I wanted Linderbaum. I did. And because I thought we could have moved Karros over. I think it would have given us that fixture at center. I really think he could become that. We haven't had that since Rich Bram. So to me, the fact that the Ravens had it, standing there, so that just disappointed me. Kudos to the Ravens. There's no question. They're getting great draft grades, and I don't really care about the draft grades. I mean, we were given a B by a bunch of people, and that's fine. That's all we needed. We didn't have we had such a great free agency that we didn't need an A+ draft. But
you can't even grade a draft the year the draft happens.
Oh no,
let alone the day after it's over. None of it makes it. We won't know about half of these guys for at least a year. You know, you might find out about one, somebody breaks out in year one. Cool. Awesome. You know, we know Jamar Chase was a
Well, look at the
successful
draft grades.
pick.
We can point to that specifically. Look at the draft grades we got last year for drafting Chase instead of Penny Sewell. Look at the grades we got. We were
I just made that
that
same argument the other day.
Yeah, we were dinged for that. And the other thing I always point to is the Browns draft, where they literally traded their entire draft class to Atlanta, or traded their pick and got Atlanta's entire draft class, and then turned around, traded back in, got Trent Richardson, traded back in, got Brandon Reeden, traded back in early in the second and got Greg Little. And 3 years later, none of their draft class was on the team. But when you listened to Kuiper right after that, you heard about how great the Browns manipulated the draft board, how they converted this Julio Jones pick. If they had just stayed put, they would have had Julio Jones. And 3 years later, they had nothing. So everybody, you know, and I know Kuiper and all those guys gave the Browns an A for, oh my gosh, look, they traded back in. They got 2 1s and a 2, and none of them, they were all garbage, all of them.
Right. So, of course.
Yeah, it's 2 or 3 years.
It just occurred to me that I did have one disappointment from the Bengals, which was, and I'm happy with our draft. I'm really, really happy with our draft. If we'd have had still either the 6th or the extra 7th, I really wanted to see us take a punter. As much as I love Kevin Huber, he's done, man. He's done. He's not getting it anymore. And considering how good our special teams unit is, it seems like we should have somebody back there kicking the ball a little stronger, who can put it down anywhere. You know what I mean?
Well, McPherson, I think the drafting of McPherson and what he did for us, because I can't remember which team it was, but somebody drafted the top punter. And I think it was the 4th or 5th round they did it. So he wouldn't have been there in the 6th or 7th, but the top punter. And I think when you look at stuff, you know, when you look at like our draft successes, when people were recapping our draft from last year coming into this draft, the big successes, we talked about Chase and they talked about McPherson in the 5th.
Yeah.
That was always listed as our biggest steal.
Right. Well, the first punter off the board, who was not actually regarded as the best punter, went to the Ravens.
Right.
The second punter off the board, I can't remember where he went. The third was punt god Ariza.
Right.
And now he's got to go up and kick frozen cinder blocks in Buffalo. So I guess we're actually going to find out how good he really is.
And who knows, maybe one of these guys hits the street, you know, it's like, you know, so, hey, we drafted Jake Elliott, then put him on the practice squad so Philadelphia could take him. You know, we might be able to pull the same maneuver on one of these teams, you know, if they try to kind of quietly shuttle him over to the practice squad, you know. You never know.
That is certainly, I think, I know it's silly to be talking this big about a punter, but I think that's a position that really needs addressing. I mean, Kevin Huber's, he's like all time in games played now, or second or something like that. And he's done tremendous things for the city and the team, but you know, at some point it's time to go.
Right. I agree.
That's business. That's football.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, with that, I think this has been a great show. Sam, it was great to have you back on.
Good to be back. Good to be back.
Yeah. And well, I'm going to put up something. I don't know. My schedule's so tight with all the 2020 litigation coming in. That's why I'm so buried. These cases are on the 5-year statute. They have to see a courtroom. And if they're filed in 2017, it has to go to trial this year. So this is the pandemic, the impact of the pandemic. Maybe I'll put together a schedule release. It'll be something towards the end of the month. So believe me, I do the shows as often as I can. If we can get Sam, you know, because I know you're buried in baseball, and I'm sorry you have to go back and cover the Reds. What are they, like 3-19 or something to start?
I saw something. And I was like, we're on pace to lose 140 games, but to be fair, I do get to cover other teams too, so I get to at least pretend like I'm winning a little bit.
There you go. But there'll be something up. I'll try to get something up by the end of May. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how the news goes. So
yeah, we'll have to do a schedule release of some sort.
I think I'd like to go through it. That's one's not as time sensitive, and I'd like to go through and talk about the games that we're really looking forward to seeing. I mean, we're gonna have a Brady Burrow game this year. That's gonna be fun. Yeah. So there's some stuff. So we'll put something together. I know it's the off season, so we have a little flexibility. Please subscribe if you don't subscribe. Comment, Tell us what you think. You agree with us? You disagree with us? We forgot to say something. Throw it in the comments. Hit the like. And with that, I'm going to say, hoo day, everybody.
Who dey?
Take care.